Thank you for having me. My first, credible podcast that I get to be on with. Finally, we get to talk about some money. That's what I like talking about. Of course, I'm doing swipe ups in my stories. My story is I always then they're like, well, maybe limit your swipe ups. I'm like, so you're just telling me the algorithm is hiding my content because I'm trying to monetize your app without paying for it? I probably wish I had listened to my college pledge brother that tried to have me put all my money in Bitcoin in 2011. But back to reach, I wish everyone loved me because then I would reach more people. I really just came on this podcast because I was hoping to learn some things I didn't have to pay to hear. So no. Hardest part of ending is starting again.
You're listening to the Radcast. If it's radical, we cover it. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Ryan Alford. Welcome to another edition of the Radcast. We're even more radical than we usually are. It's been getting real. We had a bachelor on last week with Ben Higgins. Now we've got. Can I call you Pratt Daddy, or does it need to be Pratt?
Yeah,
I'm always as soon as I heard you say that, I'm like, this is Pratt Daddy.
Call me PrattDaddy.com.
PrattDaddy.com. Hey, I like the branding, man. You're a smart businessman. Spencer Pratt joins the show. Reality TV personality, podcast host, now an entrepreneur. What's up, brother?
Thank you for having me. My first, credible podcast that I get to be on with, where we're just not talking about.
Can we circle that? Daniel's my producer here. I'm going to circle that. We're going to have that as a new headline. Spencer Pratt calls the Radcast first credible podcast.
Finally, we get to talk about some money. That's what I like talking about.
I know.
So quick little, started reality TV when I was 20, turning 38 next month, done every reality show pretty much possible, said no to a lot that I shouldn't have, that I should have taken the money, and got obsessed with buying crystals in 2008, initially just because they were really expensive and I was buying anything expensive. That was just my thing. And then, got into the energy of them and, wanted to believe it. There's people, I won't argue with people if they say they're rocks, they're really expensive rocks. So I'm fine with that. Yeah, they're in museums. I'm fine with that. So then my wife was like, you can't buy any more crystals. And so she's like, you need to sell your crystals. I was like, I'm not selling my crystals. And I was like, well, what if I buy a bunch of crystals and I sell the ones that I don't want, and then I use that profit, so then I technically didn't pay for the ones I got. She's like, I don't care what you do, you need to sell crystals if you want more crystals. So that's how I never wanted to start a business. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be Tom Cruise. I still wish I was Tom Cruise. Having a business is a full-time job, and I never wanted to have a job. That's why I did reality TV. It was so fun. Film me. Let me get drunk and argue with people. This is a great job.
I love it.
Here we are. Now I think almost 4 years later of a real business. Initially I was partnering with guys and letting them fulfill and just doing more of the swipe ups and sending them to a link that they would fulfill. But about 4 years ago, we started PrattDaddy.com because SpencerPratt.com, I had lost the domain. And I was like, well, what are we going to call it? My high school nickname was Pratt Daddy. And it was available on GoDaddy. And so that is why it's named Pratt Daddy, because it was the domain that was available. Because people were always like, why is it Pratt Daddy? You sell such expensive crystals. It sounds like a porn site or something. I'm like, it was my soccer nickname, fool. But it works out because I don't brand the crystals, so it's like you buy an expensive crystal from me. It doesn't say Pratt Daddy into the rock,
That might be phase 4 or whatever, right?
Yeah. My logo is a hummingbird with a crystal wing. So the thing that I'm missing the most is the branding of our product, having the hummingbird on every product and chain. So, but yeah, we were so crazy successful in the first couple of years. I didn't realize how successful we were because it was costing so much money for success. But now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, how did I take my, foot off the pedal? because I think our first year we did over 2.9 million just off the website, and then it went down to like 2.5, and now we're just staying alive over here post COVID.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I want to step back, but before we step back, I did look at I own a digital ad agency, and I guess just being a digital dork, I did look up like your organic reach numbers, and they're about half what they were, 2019. So I was like, I bet you that translated to some revenue changes.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if it's out, because so I was the Snapchatter of the year when I was getting those revenues, and it was because this was pre-Snapchat selling ads, and I was getting 8 million views a week on Snap, and now I'll be lucky to be in the 100,000. And then Instagram did the same thing. And then when I asked people at Snapchat, like the executives, I'm like, what's going on? They're like, are you doing swipe ups in your story? I'm like, of course I'm doing swipe ups in my story. It's my story. And I always then they're like, well, maybe limit your swipe ups. I'm like, so you're just telling me the algorithm is hiding my content because I'm trying to monetize your app without paying for it? Like, so it is what it is. So yeah, I don't know if it's that. And then I also had an ad agency. I was spending 40,000 plus a month buying ads. So I don't know if it's the algorithm or the combination of not using an ad agency anymore. But it felt like if I spent all that money, I made the same money I did without the ad company. Like it felt like it, and they would send me the breakdowns of all the stuff. And then one of my smart buddies later, I showed it to him, and he's like, well, where are you getting that from? I'm like, they sent it to me. He's like, oh, I bet they did. He's like, check out the raw data. They need to send you the raw data. I'm like, I don't have time to be looking at raw data. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I pay them this much a month to send me the little nice breakdown. So, yeah, no.
Well, we can talk about that aspect on another call, because I'll give you the one, the 411 all that. Yeah, all we do is help e-commerce brands, but we could talk more about that because I think we could help you. But all that aside, I want to talk about everything Spencer Pratt. So I'm talking with Spencer Pratt, prattdaddy.com. Talk to me a little bit, Spencer. For everyone, it's funny you talk about awareness and the algorithm and all those things, but I've always said attention is currency. And most of your attention, I think, was garnered, like you mentioned, from reality TV. I know you've done multiple shows. Most of your celebrity, though, I think we could say came from The Hills, the first iteration, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I know you've been real transparent, and you've got your podcast, the Spidey podcast, you and Heidi, your wife. I did check that out. It was very entertaining and very actually fun. I was listening to it. I had never listened to it before, but knowing you were coming on the show, I actually enjoyed it. And I think, for people that don't know, like, how would you summarize that whole experience and both, the return and everything? You're kind of known as the villain, right? Is that?
Yeah, and then this season they tried to bring that idea back, and it just kind of backfired because the audience is a lot smarter than they were in 2008, and they just see through and it's like an edit and like a total. So yeah, they're trying to run that story back, which I'm not down with at this point, because what I learned about playing the villain, because David Foster, the music producer, when I had done the Princess of Malibu, my first show that I had produced, he told me, you got to be the villain like Simon Cowell. And I was like 20 years old, and he was like hyping me up on Simon Cowell, right when I guess American Idol first dropped. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll run that. I'll be more hated than this dude. But I didn't get Simon Cowell was the villain because he was just hitting people with facts, and it was the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but I was just the villain for recklessness, and so it didn't connect, which now I learn does not work. And I mean, it worked in the sense that it made us, crazy famous, and we monetized a lot of different things. But I feel like for the long-term strategy of people, there's 90% of people that don't follow me now. If that's only they connect to that, they're like, oh, I hate that guy, because that was just I typecast, I molded myself in that world. Thankfully, there's social media, and I could build a new audience where people are like, oh, that was so fake. And, he was clearly strategic, and Heidi was obviously in on everything. But for branding wise, if I could have a time machine, I'd go back and I would have, well, if I had a time machine, I would have brought social media back, because everything would have been different if I could have gone live every night after episodes and gone on podcasts and, air out all the facts and not just let this fake edit just take me down and go along with it, because that was back when you got rich off of reality TV. And so I don't regret the checks. I probably wish I had listened to my college pledge brother that tried to have me put all my money in Bitcoin in like 2011, who now has hundreds of millions of dollars. So, I probably would have, spent wiser. I probably would have spent it all, but just, I did buy a lot of gold coins, and that helped, buy our house. So that was one thing I spent money on. But yeah, a villain and hated. And
No, I mean, but I think anyone that can kind of see it, you've been able to, level set the playing field with your social media and and that's grown obviously with the show. But I mean, how would you, like, for people listening, people that know you, I mean, like, who is the real Spencer Pratt then? Like, how do you define yourself, and where do you find kind of that center of gravity with, all the headlines and all the bullshit that was out there that, wasn't true, but as you've been building your business and building your personal brand since then, how do you kind of define yourself?
Well, I would just rewind to where I started, and that was behind the camera. Like I left USC to sell a network television show to Fox. I was the youngest executive producer at 20 years old to a network. So I wasn't supposed to be on camera. I was filming, and then they needed what's not a villain. It was just they needed an antagonist at the time. So the other producers were like, Spencer, just get over there and kind of stir it up. And it's like, I didn't get, like, I was taking the pill in the Matrix and hopping out of my whole life in that moment. And I was like, no, I got my walkie-talkie. It says executive producer. It says rather like, you still get your walkie-talkie. And I just got played. I should have been like, no, let me think about, like, is this what I want my whole life to be? The person in front of the camera, when all along growing up, all my friends are in the business, and now, writers, producers, directors, and that was where I would be. So I would say I define myself as somebody who ended up in front of the camera with the mindset of, like, success and trying to make shows that I was on, hit ratings bonus so I could get paid and da-da-da-da-da-da. So, for me, it was always easy. It was always a shtick, an act, how to get more money. And once you're in, you're in. You can't, there's no like, I'm going to decide to be a lawyer now. It's like, at one time I was like, I'm out. I'm going to try to be a manager, a talent manager. So I put a nice resume together with my USC degree, da-da-da-da-da. And I get a call from the head of the whole firm, and he's like, hey man, like, any other time we would totally hire you. But he's like, the reality is you're too polarizing to rep any of our clients. Like, and that was when I think I had to Google the word polarizing, and I was like, I was like, shit. So, yeah, I just rode the wave as far as it could take. And then finally having a business that does not matter if you like me or not. I source the best possible crystals that you can wear as a necklace on the planet. So that's the great thing about, I don't sell a product that's like, if you don't like me, you could still go to my site and be like, damn, like, these crystals are fire. If you're liking a crystal and I'm not, it doesn't come with my face on the box and da-da-da-da-da. And, so that is the edge I have in the business I'm now running versus, like, if I had a shaver that's like, why do you need this shaver? There's so many shavers. You got to have that shaver because you like Spencer. It's like, I don't have that type of, product. So that's the perks that nowadays it really doesn't matter, but back to reach, I wish everyone loved me because then I would reach more people.
Well, I still think you're getting a lot more searches just in your name alone than most people, which helps in general. So transitioning, like, coming a reality star to coming entrepreneur, I mean, what's been some of the biggest challenges of that transition? And I mean, you mentioned why crystals, but that was kind of like number one on my list, like, why crystals? I mean, you happened to start collecting when you were, in the throes of reality, maybe spending more money than you said. Maybe that's the reason. But what have been some of the challenges of that transition?
I would say first, employees, like, I'm used to being on a cast where it's like if somebody's not pulling their weight or not doing anything, you actually get paid to like engage and create, like, and pretty much get into it with these people. But you can't get into it with employees. You got to manage, personalities so much. Like at one time, like back when we were balling, I feel like we had over 12 employees and, different times and schedules and people not getting along and people sabotaging other people and people losing my expensive crystals and sending out the wrong packet. And it's like, usually I get paid to like snap on fools and like be like, now I'm having to be like, oh, okay. You lost my pink term. You don't know where my $2,000 pink tourmaline is. Okay. Like
Kumbaya moment.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to burn some sage. So that, I'd say employees making, initially I went to USC for business and I was like, I'm not going to be in business. Like, it's a waste of my time. And I transferred to political science because I was like, I could see myself, if not being in politics, because I felt like this is pre it being like the worst thing in the world. I think back in 2003, it kind of looked like, oh, that could be fun. And now it's like, no, thank you. But I did see myself as maybe a campaign manager or something. So I switched over to poli sci, but now I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I just stay in business for like the 101 day in business class? Like stuff that I learned the most expensive way. I'm sure you get a whole book about, and I still am trying to learn, and it's so hard to balance. Like for instance, when COVID hit, we didn't know it was 2 weeks to stop the spread. So I have, all of a sudden no one's coming to the office. All my employees want to fly back to their homes and be with their families. And I don't want to fire people. So I take on 2 Shopify loans, one for like $250,000, one from like Shopify Capital or whatever. This is PPP loans or whatever. So I'm just like, shit, Shopify offers me this money. I'm like, okay, I'll use this to pay payroll for employees that aren't even like literally doing nothing. I'm just paying. So a real businessman, I would have been like, hey, good luck with COVID, guys. Mask up, do what you got to do. Bye. Like everyone's fired. We're going to button down the hatches. And then if I'm going to take that money from Shopify, I would have used it to invest in gold chains from Italy that I sell or buy more crystals. So I'm now every day paying, a ridiculous, 12% off my daily sales for a loan that I took to pay for people that I no longer employ. Because once I brought them back after like 6, they were garbage too, so just the hardest lessons that all are so expensive. And, it is, the good thing is I keep telling myself, like, I want to transfer this business to my son. So it's like all these expensive, hard lessons, like I really will have learned. Everything will be, things will come up and, and COVID was a hard one because I didn't plan for that. I was spending every dollar we were making, I was putting back in the company because as I did that, it was growing the company. If we made this much, I threw it all into ads. So it was building. But then when we got unplugged, it was like I didn't put anything to the side because that wasn't, I don't know if it was smart business or bad business. If there was no COVID, would I have kept building and ads and da-da-da-da-da? So, yeah, a lot of lessons. But I would say employees was the first because I'd always been like a Ronin. Heidi and I are like one flesh. So even though like we were such a team that it wasn't like I had to ever like, oh, Heidi, don't do like, we rolled everyone, did everything together. So then now having all these people that I have to deal with that are, rely on, count on, that was the biggest, like, oh my God. And now I look at like big companies and I appreciate how, people make real money, deal with all these employees and all this drama. I'm like, oh my God. But then you realize like when you always hear like, oh, these businessmen are the worst people, it's like you almost have to be like, not a bad person, but like you cannot be a little crybaby. Like I was a little crybaby. Like, oh no, I gotta pay for all these people to work from home and not doing like it's like bye. Like life's like sucks. Like, but so yeah.
Well, hey, they say you say you get. I mean, the villain. I mean, everything you described to me describes like a good person. Like you tried to do what you thought was right. You're learning business. You take care of your employees. Maybe they didn't ultimately take care of you, which is unfortunate, but, you tried to do right by them. Maybe it's a learning lesson, but I'm not hearing villain tones there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the villain was just because it wasn't my show. Like, that's the bottom line. Like, I came in and upstaged, like, the narrator who was already in bed, metaphorically speaking, with the executive producer. So, like it wasn't like I had no chance, and I went along with it, and I stepped it up because I knew if we ever hit 5 million viewers, I got $1 million paycheck, just bonus. So, I never
I don't think you're the villain.
Yeah. It was.
You're not the villain.
Nowadays, if the same show aired where I was like the bad guy, we would get canceled. Like I'm not even like it was just there was nothing on TV in 2006. You watch some of these shows now, and I look like freaking a white belt against some red belts on the level of gangster.
No, I know. So what has been like from a business standpoint? You're on Shopify for the crystals. Again, that's prattdaddy.com. The talk about like what has worked from a marketing perspective. Obviously, your brand awareness has to play huge into it. The searches, all that. People know you. Even if you say, I don't know if I believe it yet. I'm hearing like a much better guy than anything that's ever been portrayed. And I think so. What do you lean on from a marketing perspective? I mean, is it just getting out there, PR, like keeping your name fresh?
See, I honestly, that's why I said yes to this podcast because, besides it being credible, right? I'm going to start hitting everything that people ask me. I'm just going to start doing now because I didn't do that. And I feel like I don't get out there enough and I don't push the brand enough. I've been just on the, let it come to me type business model. Yep. And it's like, I think I've peaked at that. Like I have my customers and it's like, I need to grow now and get, so we just collabed, breaking news with the, I don't know if it's a secret. Okay. Maybe it is. Maybe I can't actually break this news, but a major, one of these companies that has 1.5 million subscribers to their website or shoppers or whatever. So we have a collaboration coming with them where, I'm not making a bunch of money off it because I'm giving them my product that, I don't mark up and they want it so cheap for their audience, but I'm like, let me get to all these eyes. So it's a deal that it's more a headache than it is like positive. But I was like, let's get to these 1.5 million people. So that is the problem. I don't do enough of like what you just described. If anything, I just promote on my social media, the making of, the carving of my products, what they look like. So you see how, like, look how hot this crystal is, come buy it. Like, but I feel like I lost a lot of momentum and I blame that on the reboot of the Hills because pre-Hills is when I was getting the most, I think it was the algorithm with Snapchat was just helping my wife and I so much, but that was when we had, 2019, 2020, our most sales. And then once we went back to doing the Hills, it just took my whole hustle away. And I'm now worrying about stupid show drama and producers trying to sabotage my life and, film schedules and going on cast trips, taking employees with me to help us with Gunner and, 5 days whereas before it was 365, prattdaddy.com, all day, every day, da-da-da. And I thought, well, the show will help, get it going so much more and TV is so important. What I learned is that's not true. It is if the show just follows your business. Like our former castmate had Uncommon James about her business. And it's like, that's all the show was every now and then. And then the ratings, I feel like we lost half the audience. MTV, all due respect to them, linear TV has gotten twice as hard as it was 2 years ago when the reboot aired. So, I think it got up to 1 million viewers last season. Now we're at 400,000 where Jersey Shore, their big hits at 500,000. So linear TV is changing so much that, in a perfect world, MTV would have done a deal with Netflix and I would be multi-millionaire right now because the Netflix effect, it's like you go on Netflix and you get all of a sudden have 5 million followers on Instagram. So that's the hard balance. And we got 2 nights where they did show the crystals one night they showed the crystals. And I would say that night we did 50% better, which was that worth a year of my time and not green? Absolutely not. So, and then you start, well, how much did the show pay? Did that, after agents, lawyer, manager, taxes, was that more money than I could have made if I had put all that energy into my business? So these are the things that just like melt my brain. And you got to kind of, the way I make myself feel better, I'm like, well, I would have thought like, oh, the show, I wish the show had happened. That's what we don't have. Well, now I can say like, you don't need the show. You need to just like work hard and do podcasts and IG stories and interviews and just be on the ground.
Yep. Hey, it's boots on the ground, baby. It's kind of the way it is. But you do have, your brand and everything. You've built that, and to lean on. But I guess you're learning. But I could have told you linear TV is DEAD, baby. As a digital agency, I don't mind saying that.
Yeah, and if you are going to be a linear TV, like, then you need to have the show go live on Paramount Plus that day. Like,
exactly.
Instead of like the last season's on there. Like, so that's the stuff that kind of, it's like, well, there's obviously somebody getting paid more than me to not let that happen.
No, I know. So, can we talk about what's the future with Pratt Daddy? I mean, are you product expansion? I mean, what are you looking at? Those kind of things. Like, where is your kind of product evolution things come from?
I would say just stay in business is my new priority. Have a profitable business. Heidi's been reading this book, Profit First. And so, it's always like, we need more bank accounts. And then we call our bank and they're like, you can't open a Pratt Daddy bank. We don't allow gemstone businesses. That's for money laundering. I'm like, what? So,
oh, shit.
So, I think a big play is we just finally, after 2 years, don't even get me started on trying to get your official Amazon Prime storefront. Like, unbelievable. I truly think we've been talking to actual only robots for 2 years. Well, that's finally launched, where I see that as the future of the brand. Like, the website is our high-end, expensive, really rare crystals that I love. But like, I would say, I think on our Shopify, I read we had 120,000 people on the site this month. And I think I converted 700,000 people. So the problem is they're coming and seeing my products this much money and they want to get it for $10 or $5, even if it's just a gag joke to send to their friends. So fine, let me give them a $9 crystal to send to a friend as a gag. Like, haha, it's the Spencer Pratt crystal. Great. So I feel like that's where I'm in too niche of like a market where it's just super high end, rare stuff that I love, but I don't have that collector audience. I don't know how big that collector audience is. Crystals are still, I would say, so new to the mainstream. So when somebody comes over, they're like, well, why is this? Like, somebody just emailed me today. They're like, why is this pink tourmaline on your site for $1,700 and this one on Amazon is for $7? And I didn't respond because I'm like, I'm not going to look at the one you're looking at Amazon, but I'm pretty sure it's not a gemstone from Africa that, should, like, I'm selling it for $1,700. I can go down the street in Palisades and it's $7,000. So I even undercut the market for what I sell. Like, there's LA designers selling stuff that I sell for $200. They're selling it for $3,500 because they're in the right jewelry stores. They got the fancy pants name. They're not, Spencer from the Hills. They're like, they got money to pay all the celebrities. So I would say Amazon is probably where, I'm going to get rich, like, period. Because it's 50% of e-commerce, and I'm not even tapped into it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. What can you talk about? I know you mentioned on Spidey recently a new show venture. Something you can talk about?
So the Hill MTV is arguing with me, I guess, and said the Hills is not canceled. So I was wrong. So technically, I'm in contract with the Hills. So if they were to bring it back, wouldn't that be great? But if not, the producers of the Hills, Evolution, Alex Baskin, we're developing a. Hold on, I think I have a crystal delivery. 1 second. Nope. We're developing a series about the business and our employees and their lives, all Lisa Vanderpump and Pump Rules, where, Heidi and I would still be involved, but, the girls that work for Pratt Daddy are, TV stars. They should be on. We hire them really more for them being future TV stars and as our cast, and let's say their resumes for, being good business people.
Yeah. Influencers.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to that end, like the influencer moniker, obviously with your own personal brand, I mean, you're an influencer, but how do you feel about that whole thing? I mean, do you feel like it drives business from what you've seen, leveraging influencers?
I mean, it depends who. I would say people who have really strong audiences that really care about what they say. But I feel like and that's the hard thing. I don't know. I have so many factors that I changed. I used to give out so many crystals to people and for posts. And then I stopped doing this because I was like, I don't know. Every now and then you do give them a code. Sometimes there are people that, had a little, was worth it, but then other people, nah. And I'm like, but then it's like, whoa, did it help brand awareness? Maybe they didn't shop through that person I connected, but I hit their 1.7 million audience, but maybe not the whole 1.7 million. Maybe I hit 10,000 of those people and then they Googled it. So I can't say yes or no. I stopped giving out crystals because it's like I don't have the type of money to just give people money.
No, don't give free product. I'll just tell you that right now. For anyone listening, including Spencer Pratt, no free product. That's my first advice for anyone working with influencers.
Yeah, I even stopped I used to give all my employees free product, and now they're like, can I buy this at your cost? And I'll agree to that. Even that makes me mad. I'm like, no, I bought it at my cost so I could sell it at the cost that makes your salary. But it's like
my tip of the day for all friends and family that ask for it, you give them the double half special. Just for them, you'll double the price and cut it in half. That's what I tell all friends and family.
That's the other thing. My mom, I don't think she'll listen to this podcast because maybe she will. Sorry, Mom.
We'll send her links. She'll send.
My mom asked for the most expensive stuff, and she's like, "This hasn't sold." I'm like, "I know, Mom." She's like, "Well, can I have it?" I'm like, the last few that you said didn't sell. You have please, Mom. And she's like, "I'll buy it." I'm just like, "Mom, I don't want your money, Mom. I want other people's money." So yeah, sorry, Mom.
Oh, sorry, Mom. We're gonna get Mom to listen though. We want Mom listening to the Radcast. Is there anything you'd want people to know about you that's not? I mean, you seem to be being pretty authentic now. And I mean, obviously, not that you weren't ever, but you've admitted on the show, you played a certain character. I mean, is there anything you'd want people to know, as they get to know the real Spencer Pratt better?
No, I really just came on this podcast because I was hoping to learn some things I didn't have to pay to hear. Don't give away product. I came on a podcast to learn. So that's my takeaway.
Well, then you just need to subscribe to the Radcast. You'll learn. We give all our free advice.
That's the thing. I do need to start listening to business podcasts. I need to start when I first started the business, I was doing all the Klaviyo seminars and signing up for all the Shopify. But then it's I stopped. The last time I was like, this is too much to keep up with. But I got to go back to learning from these people like yourself and not trying to just wing it.
Oh, it's all good.
But I mean, if you check my social media, I film myself all day long on pretty much every platform. So, anything I say here, it wouldn't, you go and click on my story, you're going to decide if you like me or not in, few seconds,
Your breakfast wrap that you eat every day. It's
breakfast burrito. Technically, that's the Pratt Daddy burrito, which was a big get because if you live in California, Erewhon is the hottest spot, and I'm the first person to have an Erewhon food branded product. So, I mean, I was eating it it being called the Pratt Daddy burrito. While we're on the phone, I just found out that it only is going to be available till the 8th. So that was a hard text I just had to hit. I was like, oh my God, that was hard. But so yes, I dance to Enya and my Pratt Daddy burrito from Erewhon every morning.
Is that hummingbird real? That
comes up? So that's another thing that one day I probably will monetize is hummingbird feeders because I would say nobody feeds more hummingbirds than I do. I probably have 1,000 hummingbirds in my backyard. I go through pounds of white cane sugar a day. It's my spirit totem animal. When my son was born, a baby hummingbird hatched on our front door, and I was like, sign from God, okay, gotta start feeding hummingbirds, and here we are.
Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. We've probably mentioned it several times already, but tell everybody that's listening where to keep up with all things Pratt Daddy.
Yeah, prattdaddy.com. Instagram is Spencer Pratt. You just want to see product. Instagram's Pratt Daddy. Snapchat, Pratt Spencer. Soon I will have my own Facebook audio rooms coming in September. That's pretty exciting with Facebook, so look out for those. And thanks Radcast, and I'm going to subscribe to the Radcast and definitely never give any product away again.
No. And
I need tips. I need tips on SEO. I feel like if you search Spencer Pratt and like Heidi, it does not just take you right to prattdaddy.com. I feel like it's always that's a hard game.
I think we could do some exchange. I'll give you free advice, and you just tag me when we'll do like an Instagram live or something. So it'll raise our awareness, and I'll give you free advice because I can help you.
Boom, deal.
There we go. An influencer deal striked right here on the Radcast. You got like 3 minutes for me for a quick rad or fad section to close out the episode.
Yes, yeah.
So rad or fad, one word. I'm going to give you a keyword. You can say rad or fad if you want to add more context. All our guests do, so you wouldn't be in the norm or out of the norm. So first, the Olympics. Are you watching them?
I mean,
rad or fad?
Rad, because they're hard to watch because they're not just on all day long, and they only put on certain ones. You need apps or whatever, but I'll always appreciate superstars.
There we go. Rad on the Olympics. Free Britney.
Oh, rad! I've been free Britney for 10 years.
No kidding. It's crazy. TikTok.
Oh, rad.
Cool. And finally, no setup here at all. Crystals.
Rad.
Cool, man. All right, Spencer, brother, appreciate you. Hey, free advice for tagging. I'm going to hit you up. We're going to stay in contact.
Boom. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, brother. You know where to find us. We're at theradcast.com. You can search all our content. Search for Spencer Pratt. Search for Pratt Daddy. All at theradcast.com. You know where to find me. I'm verified on all platforms at Ryan Alford. We'll see you next time on the Radcast.